Let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome back to Thicc Radio, the award-winning podcast where we talk about gaining, fetishism, and everything plus size. I'm James.
And I'm Tim, so let's get into it. Today we're welcoming to the show for the first time, Roman the Wizard.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing, babes?
Oh, so good, so good. Super excited since we last talked about doing this.
Oh, good. So, Roman, my love, for anyone who is not familiar with you, give us a snapshot of who you are. Tell the listeners about yourself.
All right, well, okay. So my name is Roman. I'll be 36 this month. I do several different things. So I work in estate sales. I'm currently in school for clinical social work. I'm into fitness. I'm into eating, and I'm a jack of all trades in a lot of ways. But yeah, I feel like I'm pretty easygoing. You know, I don't want to curse too much because I was in the military, so I curse like a sailor because I was a sailor. I was in the Navy, and sometimes my sense of humor doesn't translate well. So I was a little nervous of that, but I mean, luckily I've seen you, James, twice. We hung out 2 times in London, and you gave us the most exquisite tours of London. I mean, I wish we could have spent even more time than we did together. I'm so grateful for the time that we did spend together. That was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. And
Yeah,
baby,
it was
listen, you don't got to worry about nothing with this podcast because I'm a cunt and a faggot, and Tim is words that only he can use to describe himself. So, I don't know. I also feel like on the notion of like, ooh, what is the tone? What is the vibe? Do you remember talking about this, Tim? Like, obviously, when we were first coming together to be like, well, what's
Yeah.
the vibe meant to be like, right? And I feel like,
You know how we initially were like, oh, maybe we should, like, are we going to be like the NPR of the gainer world? Like, well, I hope we're not quite as dry as they are. Yeah, and we the way that we talk to each other is the way that we wanted to talk to everybody else. So
yeah, it's very casual. It's also very like, come as you are. I'm not really interested in pretense when it comes to these types of conversations, because as we're kind of going to get into today, so much of everything that goes on is kind of layered with this expectation, and I feel like it really it hinders like authentic expression and the ability to be honest about what we're going through, what our experiences are like.
Oh
So
God, yeah.
I appreciate you sharing with the listeners a little bit about who you are. And I think this also kind of, like, this little chat gives us a sense of, like, what we're kind of getting into, right? And for listeners who cannot see you right now or who are not familiar with you, how tall are you?
So I am 5'5" without shoes on, so 65 inches. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And, we've a lot of the conversations we have around gaining, we try to remind people, if you see someone who looks like they have blown up very quickly, if you see someone who's making a lot of progress, look at the height, put them on the, oh, what do you call it when you get the mugshot done? And it's like, a bitch might be a little shorter. She might find it a little easier to look a little fuller, a little thicker, a little more quickly, with height and all things considered. But I think as a starting point, as someone who's 5'5", do you find that your height as you are either presents some surprising successes or surprising challenges in your day-to-day life?
I would say successes more than anything. I've grown to like I never had a growth spurt. You know, I've been the same height since I was 13 years old. And in high school, I noticed, guys around me would just kind of shoot up over the years. And that just never happened to me. So it's just always kind of been my normal, is just being, seeing the world from this perspective, 65 inches above the ground. So I don't know anything else. So I wouldn't say that it's ever hindered me or challenged me in any way like that. Like just this past weekend, right? This big party, Alphonse Dovana and Hugo came down to Austin and did the Horse Meat Disco, which was a fantastic party. And I would get comments every now and then from like taller guys, like, "Oh my God, I love short guys. Oh, you know what I mean?" So like that's kind of like what I focus on. I'm never going to be 6'2", so why think about that? It's never been in the forefront of my mind. And at this point, I'm 36 years old this month. I'm just like, this is who I am. I love it. I'm comfortable in my skin. I'm a short king. I love that this is a great time to be short and thick. I love it.
He's a little teapot, short and stout.
Now blow his back out.
Ooh,
Hey, there you go.
said
Here,
that.
here's a little teapot, short and stout. Here are his love handles, and his penis is his spout. I don't know. I'm trying.
You're good,
Rome
man.
wasn't built in a day, people. We're gonna
Now
workshop this
bend him
one.
over and blow his back out.
You're a lyricist. You should write music.
Thank you. Thank you. And if I can ask, what is your BMI currently?
Okay, so supposedly it's 40. According to the Veterans Administration, it's 40. But that's because I weigh 240 pounds and I'm 5'5". And they're still using tape measures, ropes, and pulleys to measure people's circumference. But I don't think it's 40.
I worked at the VA for a little while. I know the pain of trying to do everything the archaic way.
Well, Tim, you were around when they invented the archaic way. You remember, you remember measuring circumference when all you had was a motherfucking sundial at Stonehenge, bitch.
The sad part is the school that I went to also taught us the apothecary system.
Oh wow, so like
What
grains.
school did you go to?
I
Fucking
went to a, I
Mildred
went to a,
Hubble's?
no, I went to
Fucking...
I went to a private nursing school, and they taught us the apothecary system along with everything else because they said there's a possibility you may still run into it. And if you think that the metric system is confusing, you should try to figure out the apothecary system because everything's measured in drams and grains,
Yeah.
and it's like however much a grain of wheat would weigh is how much one of those is, and it's like it. Oh, I'm glad
Darling,
we don't use it.
the most offensive thing you've ever said to me is that the metric system is confusing. How absolutely dare
It's
you?
confusing if you're an American
It's
because they
confusing to
tried to
us.
teach it to us, but the teachers revolted, and
Yeah,
then
it's confusing to us, James. It is. It really is.
Listen, all I'm saying, metric is in tens, hundreds, and thousands. It all rounds up to digits, and it's very
but
straightforward.
imagine
I know
converting
you
that
you
from
say
people
that, but it's much easier to just say my car weighs as much as an elephant, than 400 kilograms.
Well, I wasn't going to say you
But you
weigh as
say
much
it.
as an elephant, Roman, but
The problem is like it's because I think I think Americans still do math in base 8 and the metric system is in base 10. And I know that they're both even numbers, and I know you're thinking, well, why is that difficult for you? Because we're Americans. Everything is difficult for us. We don't learn things as easily as the rest of the world.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
and you know what?
that's an apology, by the way. Listeners, that's an apology. That's an American apologizing for America.
And you know what? Thank you. I received that, and I think all our non-American listeners just went, oh, thank you.
I will be the first one to apologize for my country. Okay, I don't believe in the patriotism bullshit. I don't believe in the nationalism shit. I will be the first person to
We're holding
apologize for my
space. We're
country.
holding space for the metric system in America.
Holding space. We listen and we don't judge, but we also
Right.
don't learn it or teach it, which, and honestly, I might shade the imperial system, but like I learned that the Brits use stones, and stones is in every 14
That's 2 tons.
pounds.
Right? Is 1 stone 2 tons?
No, a stone is 14 pounds. 1-4.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry.
Like, what? Who the fuck is doing? Like, you said 8s and we do 10s. That system does 14s. What the shit? Anyways, that's not what we're here to talk
Yeah,
about
why
today.
sorry about this tangent.
No, that's
It's a
fine.
deviation.
We are here to talk about the fact that you are short, bitch. Why the fuck? Yeah, exactly.
Why won't you grow?
Yeah. Explain that for us. God damn it. No, that's totally fine.
I was just wondering, like you talk about being 5'5" and the particular challenges that came along with it. Like, did you ever at any point feel that you had to overcompensate because of your height?
No, but I feel like that is a misconception, though. I do feel, and I feel like I've always been kind of hyper aware of what's going on around me and the way people react to one another and the way we kind of interact with each other. And I've always been kind of like hyper aware of the energy that people exude when they interact with me and with one another. That's probably why I went into social work. I worked in mental health for the last like 10 years. And I do feel when you're below a certain height, people don't take you seriously. They don't take you as seriously as you deserve to be taken seriously. So then in a sense, you do kind of have to be a little bit more assertive with the way you talk about certain things, whether it's your profession or your interests or your feelings. And then you risk coming off as like, what do they call it? The Napoleon syndrome.
Oh, Napoleon complex. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I have been told that before, right? And I'm like, well, no, you didn't take me seriously when I was talking about this earlier. And I mean, I can even see it. Like just this past weekend, actually, I was hanging out with a bunch of tall guys, and I could see them kind of looking at each other eye to eye. And I had to kind of like draw the attention in the group to talk. And I had to, like, for
Mm.
example, project my voice a little louder, be a little bit more expressive because the conversation would shift. It was easier for them to connect eye to eye because they're literally looking at each other eye to eye. So that is
Totally.
something that us shorter guys are kind of aware of. That does happen. We're just so used to it.
And I feel like I've observed that. I'm also with a short king. And he said that to me before. He said things to me like, I have to talk louder for people to hear me. I have to do more for people to take me seriously, for people to pay attention
Mm.
to what I'm saying. And he's like, and I get, and he's also a redhead. So what he's afraid of is getting like the angry ginger,
Yeah.
the little
Yes.
short angry fire plug, the one that's
Yes.
always, yeah.
The fiery ginger, very much a frustrating stereotype. And in fact, this makes me think, Tim, because you love to oblige me with certain things from time to time. You will show me things from your childhood that you quite enjoyed. You showed me a video doing a deep dive into some of the Batman animated series villains.
I was wondering if you were going to bring this up.
One of them in particular was a character called Baby Doll, who, when you showed me, I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure I've seen this character before. This looks familiar to me. And for anyone who's unaware, in the Batman animated series of the 90s and 2000s, Baby Doll was a character created for the program in which it was an adult human. They were 35, I think, according to the character
Yeah,
bio, but
yeah.
they occupied, like, they had a
It's a genetic
specific.
disorder. It's the kind of thing that Emmanuel Lewis had, where you don't age, like they don't physically grow, and then they don't look any older. They remain looking like a child even when they're 30 something.
And it was very interesting that a lot of the points were around, after, this character who's an actress, and after the show ends, they try to go on to be a serious actress, but no one takes them seriously because when they look at them, all people see is a child. And so therefore, they are infantilized. They aren't spoken to appropriately or treated like an adult human being. And so, there is, I think, a very real thing to the way in which, as people, we tend to treat those who, even if it's in slight ways, it is a form of othering. But baby, microaggressions are fucking real. They're
Yeah,
absolutely real, and we should be more aware of it.
absolutely. And the thing with microaggressions is that you're not even aware that you're committing them most of the time, right? During my undergrad, I took a diversity class, and that's where we really covered microaggressions and what they can look like. And even that's when I was like, holy shit, like even I'm guilty of committing microaggressions because you're not aware you're not aware of your biases, right? Until you're aware of them. So, but being short, you're aware of other people's biases when they're unaware of them. And that can
When
be kind of frustrating sometimes.
Isn't that kind of just the thing about otherism? Like when you're othered, you're like aware of everybody else's shit before you're aware of your own because they're always projecting it onto you.
And they're not aware that they're doing it, which is even more frustrating because then it's like your feelings are absolutely valid and justified, but to them, because they're unaware of it, you just look crazy. You just look upset for no
mm, well, part of that is also whether or not people believe that what they're doing is wrong. We talk about this all the time with regards to fat phobia. A lot of people feel that they are justified in their mistreatment of fat people because, well, they're fat. And it becomes this cyclical thing of there is no source as to why this person is quote unquote deserving of this negative treatment. It's simply accepted that there is a moral impetus to be thin. Therefore, if you fail that, you are somehow deserving of this. And a common critique amongst fat lib people is if you try to tell certain people, hey, what you're doing is harmful, hurtful, it's not appreciated, the likelihood of people turning around and be like, shut the fuck up, fatty, because to their mind, they just go, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. I should be allowed to do this thing. And it can be very, very frustrating. And again, part of the reason why I think this is going to be a good conversation today is because I think some people within the community will look at you as a shorter person and in some ways project a sense of like, oh, gaming must be super easy for you. You must have all of the access within gaming because you only have to put in a small amount of work to get all the results versus some people who are much, much taller. And like, I understand that frustration. You see other people having greater successes in your mind's perception. You go, oh, I wish that was me. But there's a very real situation to being someone who's shorter. And I think in part of the preamble, we'll get into it. You've talked about things like your health and decisions you make around your approach to gaining, which I think are very, very valid for your experience as someone of your height. But I think here in the conversation, I'd like to put it to you. Is there anything kind of at the top of the mind or at the forefront of your mind with regards to the experience of like gaining, being a bear, being a short king? Like, is there anything to that experience at the forefront of your mind that you kind of want people to get to grips with?
That the grass is always green on the other side. I mean, what you see is not always what is the truth. And I feel like in the gaining world, especially with social media and people always putting their best foot forward, we only really see what people want us to see. And the reality is much more complex and it's much more multifaceted. When it comes to somebody like me, for example, like I have a slow metabolism, right? Like it's not because I'm short. That's a different genetic component to my physical makeup is my metabolism, right? Like it's just very slow. It's always been that way. It will always be that way. I put on weight very easily, and it's been a source of frustration. There are benefits to it, absolutely. When it comes to like muscle building and things like that, I can eat less and retain more of my mass. But at the same time, I have to be very conscious of what I'm eating because if I just go 2, 3 days without running, for example, running 30 minutes a day, if I just miss 3 days of doing that, I'm already at risk for slowing me down. So it's just things aren't always what they seem, and I feel like with social media, especially now with AI and like these images of just these
Oh, dude,
like
it's terrible.
I mean, you can still kind of tell sometimes, but there's people using it to their advantage and posting pictures as themselves, which have clearly been doctored. But you read the comments and it's like, holy shit, people aren't picking up on this.
No,
People aren't picking up on this.
they see the
I don't know
fantasy
if yeah.
and they want it. Something I think that's worth pointing out here, as you all know, we've been doing the Warren Davis series. Go check it out on our YouTube channel. Thank you very much. But you know, we're asking everyone, right? Like, do you feel that the Warren Davis art has had an impact on your perception of fat bodies? And most people have said yes. And I think that's worth considering. One of the greatest models for what we desire within gaining was a body archetype that is unattainable and near impossible, really, to get to a proximity of. Very few people can attain a similar shape, let alone hit the weights, the sizes. And with AI, we're seeing the same kind of thing. There is, I think, something beautiful about a fantasy that goes beyond the natural into the supernatural. I think it's maybe why we worship images of angels and demons, right? Like there's something about something that goes beyond the human that, you know, does something for the soul. But there is a danger, I would argue, in not understanding the difference between what is and what is not. So I think that's a very valid part in the conversation. But Roman, I'd like to put this to you because you'd mentioned growing up you were always a little chunky, you're always a little thick. I'd like to know at what point in your journey did you discover your queerness, and how does that relate to things like discovering the bear community, discovering the gaining journey? Like, walk us through that. Where did you come in to find all of those parts?
Okay, I feel like my story is probably no different than anybody else's. I came out when I was 15, 16 years old, 2004. I was a chunky kid. I had covered in freckles. A lot kind of happened during that little section of my life between 2004 and 2007. That was the same year that like my parents divorced. It was the same year I came out of the closet. And I went from being a chunky little gay boy in Miami, Florida, to suddenly just falling into this like deep depression. And like the only thing that I really felt like I had control over during that little section of my life was what I could eat or what I could not eat. Looking back now with clarity and with insight, I know that's what it was. But at the time, I was just feeling. I was trying to make sense of all these complex feelings. So I dropped a ton of weight when I was in high school. Within like the span of a year, I went from 180 pounds down to 130 pounds. And I was still the same height, but I was very young. And I looked sick. I was looking back, I looked sick. I was never diagnosed because my mother never believed in taking me to see a mental health professional at that time. Like I come from a very traditional Cuban family, but at the time, that's exactly what it was. It was absolutely, a mental health condition that I was suffering from. And I could control what I could control, and I could not control my parents separating, divorcing. I could not control my sexuality. I could not control, these profound aspects of my life, but I could control what I ate, and I dropped a ton of weight. So then I was very thin from the age of 16, 17 up until like 21. I struggled a lot with food. I struggled a lot because I was always so heavy set. I've always had a very slow metabolism. So no matter what I ate, I was always terrified of putting on weight, horrified. If the scale ever went up 5, 10 pounds, I mean, I would lose sleep over it. I would truly, like, debilitating. It was terrifying, So I understand when people are kind of struggling with that, and how a lot of people don't understand what that's like. I've lived it, so I get it. You know what I mean? And then it wasn't until I was about 23, 24, right before I left to the Navy, I started working at a gym in South Beach. That was actually the first time I actually honed in on making sense of who I was, where I wanted to go in life, accepting myself as I was, all my insecurities as they were. I was about to leave Miami, leave, my upbringing, my culture, everything I'd known as my reality, to join the military and whatever God had in store for me after that. And it wasn't until I was working at that gym that I finally made friends with competitors and coaches, right? And just people that worked at the gym as well. Like, I want to be in shape. For the first time, I want to just let go of all of these physical insecurities that I've had to hold on to, and just this fear of being fat, this fear of being thin, and just be at peace with myself for the first time. Like, that's all I wanted at that point. I just wanted to be at peace in my own skin. And that's kind of when it started. And that was 2014. From then to now, that was a whole different journey, because then I was in the military, and then those 5 years of my life, I was in probably the best shape I've ever been in. I mean, I was probably about 15% body fat for about 5 years. And I used to work as a go-go boy at the DC Eagle and the Baltimore Eagle. Had a great time, but I was living a double life, right? I was in the military during the day, 5 days a week, and on the weekends, every other weekend, I was a go-go boy. And that's how I met Indigo. Indigo and I started at the same time at the same bar in Baltimore. So his journey has been spectacular. So, like, being able to see him, I call him a shapeshifter, because since as long as I've known him, the way he's been able to literally change the makeup of his body over time is truly remarkable. But him and I started at the same place at the same time. And then it wasn't until COVID, when I got into the military in 2020, I got out, that's when the weight came on. That's when I put on 60 pounds, and I went from 190 pounds when I got into the Navy to 260 pounds by the end of 2020 into 2021. And since then, my weight went up to 290, 2024, early 2024, and now I'm down to 240. So it has really been this complex, multifaceted journey with all these moving parts and all these, like, emotional, psycho-emotional, spiritual components that have kind of led to where I am now.
First of all, thank you for sharing. You came out of the military, and I can imagine coming from such a system from 5 years before that was so structured, so specific. You were able to kind of be in your body, doing what you were doing in such a regimented and way that you had tailored, to then suddenly snap fingers, you're not doing that anymore, and there's a pandemic going on. I can imagine that there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of trying to figure things out, and a lot of the world that you may have been expecting was not the world that you walked into, you know? And again, I want people to consider that, as much as we celebrate weight gain and we're celebrating the gaining journey, that comes as complementary to the lives we want to lead. And when there's a lot of upset, that can make things very, very difficult when it comes to processing how we feel about our bodies. You put on like 60, 70 pounds in that year, and I think a lot of gainers would immediately go, oh my God, this is amazing, do it again. But you're sat there like, actually, bruv, for what it was, and at that time, that wasn't the vibe. That didn't make you feel good, right?
I wanted to gain weight. I didn't want to gain that much weight. And that's a whole other conversation, because a lot of these guys that we're looking at, muscular, big belly, huge arms, huge legs, a lot of these guys are supplementing. It's very difficult to obtain that look, that aesthetic naturally. And that's kind of what I was going for back then. But of course, being locked up in my house for a year and a half, I did nothing but just hang out and just eat sushi, carbs, drink, so it really sped up the weight gain. But I did intend to gain weight. I didn't intend to gain 70 pounds in a year.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't have minded. Unfortunately, during lockdown as a nurse, I still had to work every day. I still had to get up and go in and work in the COVID units and so I think the most I got out of that whole thing was a week off when I caught it.
Yeah, that losing taste and losing the sense of smell, that horrified me the first time I had it because my husband loves to cook. He's an amazing cook. And the fact that I could no longer taste his food, I mean, it was very scary.
The second time I got it, I was bitching to James. I was like, I can't taste anything. I cannot taste a thing. I couldn't taste spicy foods, sweet foods, nothing. Everything was like cardboard. I have a Yankee Candle. You know how potent those are. I took that
Yeah.
lid off, stuck my nose directly in there, could not smell a thing.
Yeah, it's such a scary feeling. When you rely so much on like your sensory perceptions of the world, taste, smell, like, and you're deprived of that suddenly and quite aggressively, it's scary.
I wonder if this is one of those moments where people are like, oh yeah, like taste, smell, those are senses I use to perceive the world, but we don't think about them because our eyes are always switched on, our ears are always turned on. We don't think about the intersection of something like scent and flavor, and yet you notice the moment it goes, it's a whole thing. And look, I know that there were certainly gainers during the pandemic who did the whole, oh, if you lose your sense of taste, that's okay. That's your opportunity to eat like more of the gross tasting like and I'm sat here like, sure, but fuck, like this isn't a golden ticket to the experience, right? Like, I actually want to taste good food. Feck.
Yeah, you're
Oh
also
my
you're also
God.
still so limited as to what your stomach can even hold.
Because you don't even have like taste and flavor and sensation to like measure how you're feeling or you're vibing about things. I imagine it's like relearning to experience food all over again. And
The
there's
weirdest,
no,
the weirdest part was I could only sense temperatures and textures when I would eat things. And I was so horrified that I would be stuck like this forever.
I want to throw it back for a sec because something you had said in your story is about, that 70-pound weight gain. And you would express you did want to gain, but you didn't want to gain quite that much, quite that fast, in quite that same way. And you've been on a journey, you've lost a little, you pivoted to how you approach your body. You got up though, like sort of the upper 200s. I'd like to hear from you. Like, what were some of the detractions at that size for you?
I think it was after I hit 280, I began to feel just fatigued, just doing normal everyday things, going up and down stairs, walking around the grocery store, going to the gym, of course. Like I would feel just so fatigued, and just I would record videos, me playing with my dog or talking to my partner or whatever, and I could hear myself in the background of the video just and I'm like, holy shit. Like, and I wasn't even aware that I was panting and out of breath while I was recording these videos. Another thing is my feet were always aching. And this is all after 280. My feet would always, every day at the end of the day, like I would just need to massage my feet because my soles were just so achy and so just in pain. And I had to like soak them in hot water from just going to the gym and just running a mile.
Are
Nothing
you
crazy.
flat-footed?
No, no.
Oh.
But this was up to 280. I began to have foot pain, back pain. I remember my lower back because my belly would protrude so much that it would kind of hang over, and that would put a lot of pressure on my lower spine. And I wouldn't feel it really until the end of the day when I was taking a hot shower. I could feel how the weight was distributed to my front, and it would put pressure on my lower spine. And it wasn't until I would lie down on my back when my belly would kind of rest back up again and it would put pressure on my lower back that I could feel that it was my belly that was causing all these aches in my back. So those were kind of some of the downsides. And then of course I kind of got used to living like that for I want to say like 2 years. I'd be like in the kitchen, I would just like rest my belly on the counter while I would be chopping vegetables, and that would help.
I think a lot of gainers look for these changes, these experiences as markers for growth. And we associate them with numbers, I would say, and certainly numbers of a certain height. I think there would be people surprised to hear about you experiencing those and not even having hit 300. But I've spoken about this, about my own experiences. I'm around 210. I'm already at a size where if I go to certain cafe restaurants and they've got those chairs with the arms, I'm already not comfortably sitting in them. I'm at 210, baby. Like, the specific size, I don't think matters that much. I think when you begin to experience access difficulties or shifts in the body, I think that's when you take note. And I respect how you say, like, as you started to experience those, you had to question, like, is this really something I can endure? And even if the answer is yes, is this something that you should have to if you don't really want to? And you said no, and then you made changes to that. And I think that's highly commendable because I think sometimes as gainers, we also get stuck in the mindset of, oh, this is what everyone says we should want. This is the direction that everyone says we should go in. Therefore, to do anything different to that feels antithetical in some way. Whereas actually, that's you figuring out the sweet spot about the body that is right for you in your gaining journey.
Yeah, because some guys can live like that. Some guys can live, and we all have different tolerances for physical pain, right? And that has a lot to do with it. Is my tolerance for physical pain was obviously much lower than somebody who can live like this and is comfortable and happy and enjoys it. But for me, it was like I was in so much pain sometimes that I'm like I'm in a bad mood. It's affecting my moods throughout the day. Or now I'm like snapping at people who I'm engaging with or interacting with, and it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with how I'm feeling in this body physically right now. And I couldn't. I'm like I can't. This something has to change. And it wasn't until my doctor bitched me out one day that like it kind of put things into perspective because doctors will always have a way to like bring everything back to your weight. You could go in with like a skin rash, and they're gonna bring it back to your weight. Go
Well, let me
ahead.
ask you this. How do you feel about your weight now? Like, do you feel that you've got a greater sense of like what works for you in your body? Do you feel like you have a sense of, oh, there are new goals that you want to put to yourself? Like, talk us through that a little bit.
The biggest thing I wanted to do was I wanted to feel comfortable, right? Because one can become obsessed with the number on the scale, and that doesn't matter whether you're in great shape or whether you're overweight or you want to be fat or you want, like we become hyper fixated on the number on the scale, and it got to a point where I'm like, I'm done looking at the number. I want to make sure that I can go up and down stairs, I can go to the gym, I can walk around the grocery store and not be out of breath, not have my heart pounding, not have my blood pressure through the roof. I want to feel good. And if I can feel good, I can feel sexy. And I wasn't there. I felt like I was still battling just being so significantly overweight that despite like what the pictures I would post, I still didn't totally feel, super confident, super comfortable in my own skin, even when I was, even a year ago.
Yeah, that confidence, it reads really strongly. And again, I think one of the reasons it's pertinent to have this conversation, we've had a few episodes this season actually about people who've stepped away from gaining entirely, right? Like, I think we do need to be able to ask ourselves the question, like, is this serving us correctly in a way that is ultimately beneficial for us? And I think if the answer is yes, then fabulous. You don't need to worry about it. You go ahead and do what you gotta do. But if you feel a challenge to that, then it's worth considering changing things up and taking a new approach. To which point I want to ask, because as you say, you grew up kind of chunky and dealing with all that. Like, what led you to the gym in the first place? Like, was it gaining at that point for you? Was it because you were going to do the Navy? Like, what was it that kind of led you to be like, oh, let me get into the muscle of it all?
So it got serious when I started working at the gym in 2014 down in South Beach. That was when it really got serious, because I was around all these bodybuilders and fitness models. And this was before social media was really what it is now. So people who were going to this gym were just competitors or models or porn stars, right? So it was just people that were in shape. And that was how it started. I was working at this gym like 4 or 5 days a week, and I was around all these people that I'm like, okay, I want to take my health seriously and I want to learn what I can. And I'm in this environment. I'm not paying for any of this knowledge. So I might as well just absorb as much as I can about form, about diet, about repetitions, hydration, supplementation, nutrition, all these different components to building muscle and looking good. That was when it all started. It just so happened that it aligned with me getting ready to leave to the military, where I was going to be forced to have to train and run 5 miles a day and do all of that. So it just kind of worked out that I was getting in shape before I shipped off to the military. And since then, fitness has kind of been like the central force of my life in a lot of ways. You know, when everything else in my life was going crazy, right? Like getting out of the military, the lockdowns, the pandemic, being stripped of my identity, all of those things, I knew that I still had this safe space to go to channel my frustration, to channel my grievances, and you know, whatever I was feeling, I could go to the gym and just run or just lift, push weights, pull weights, whatever it was until I was just completely exhausted.
I'd be curious to ask because you say about the fitness, and I think sometimes again gainers can get very one track in terms of there's only one way to do things, right? But you've mentioned about how fitness, and in particular your personal health for you, is a core part of how you feel the sexy and kind of get into the gaining of it all. So how do you personally find that balance between fitness and gaining?
Oh, that's a great question. How do I find the balance between fitness and gaining? Oh, that's such a great question. I feel like I'm still figuring that out because I still train. You know, I lift weights, I'm into flexibility, I'm into yoga, but I've also accepted I'm never going to be 165 pounds again. I'm always going to be 200 plus. I'm always going to be a big little guy. And I think it's just just really accepting that these are the cards I was dealt, right? I was dealt this frame, I was dealt this metabolism, I was dealt this energy level, I was dealt this level of cravings for sugary foods and fatty foods. I was dealt this inability to crave leafy dark green vegetables 5 times a day. You know, like that's just the way I'm designed. And instead of fighting it and resisting it like I did for so long, now it's accepting it. And there's a peace that comes with that. You know, there's a peace that comes with that. I'm no longer obsessed with the number on the scale because it's
Yeah.
always going to change. It's going to keep changing till I die. It's going to keep changing, right? But what's not going to change is the way I feel about myself. That can only improve.
You know, we talk about this theory, right? Because certain people will have goals of, let's say, 300,
Mhm.
400, 500, 600, and
Yeah.
they say, nope, that's the number I'm aiming for, and I won't stop until I get there. And I think that's very commendable. But let's be real. Can you in your body feel the difference between 300 pounds and 295 pounds? Can you really feel the difference? And I think the answer is largely no. 5 pounds at that size, and especially as the scale goes up, you're barely gonna notice it. And yet, for some people, they won't allow themselves to feel a satisfaction until they see that number on the scale. But you live in a body that is almost identical to the one you were in before. Why were you not good enough 5 pounds ago? Why weren't you allowed to feel good 5 pounds ago? And sometimes I feel like when we talk about that kind of stuff here on the pod, it's important that we remind people we are just as able to be subjected to like body dysmorphia and like that side of things as the thins are, because like they do the same thing going in the opposite direction. Just because we're going up the scale doesn't mean it's any less healthy to obsess in that kind of a way. Like finding ways to center our own pleasure and our own sense of self-worth separate to the perceived progress of gaining, I think is very, very important. And more of us could stand to do things with that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, having to live with being incapable of accepting your physical reality is a very difficult cross to bear, and it's a very painful reality to reside in. To look at your reflection and just never be satisfied. And every day, time goes by, every day another day goes by, and you're losing this time. You're only, you know, this is really how I see it. One is only that much closer to the grave with every day that passes. And I'm grateful to have had learned this even at my age now, that I'm like, this is the only body I'm ever going to have. And the best thing I can do for myself is to treat myself like someone I love. And the obsession with the number on the scale, it became this daunting thing, like looking at my reflection, looking at the number on the scale, you know, and just looking at food and seeing it like this chore, like this thing that had to be done to get closer to this ideal that didn't exist in the real world, you know. And I'm just grateful that I was able to kind of get myself out of that early enough to be at a point now where I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna do what makes Roman feel good and what makes Roman happy, because Roman of 10 years ago was never satisfied with anything. So when I see these guys that like they chase this number, and when they ask me like, oh, you know, how do you do it? How do you do it? I can see the cogs in their mind just going 100 miles an hour, trying to get to the root of what it is that I'm doing, but I'm not doing anything because they're obsessed with the number on the scale. And like you said, to your point of, it doesn't just affect chubby guys, it's bodybuilders, it's thin people. It's this obsession with the number on the scale, and that can affect all of us. It has affected all of us, I think, in one way or another.
Boy, do I identify with that. I'll admit it. This year has been a pretty big mental struggle for me. I've been dealing with a lot this year, and I get it. Like I was just talking to James the other day. I may have even said it on something we were recording, where I'm like, sometimes eating feels like a chore. Sometimes it feels like a huge inconvenience because there's other stuff that your brain is telling you should be doing right now, and and when you chase that number obsessively and you look in the mirror, you don't see it reflected back. You don't see it on the scale. Like, God, I know, I know that too well, because I even had, people will offer to send me a scale just so that they will know how much I weigh, because they want to know. And I'm like, no, dude, the scale is triggering, because I get
Yeah.
it and I get disappointed and I just get pissed and I get
And you know
depressed
what?
and
They've got money enough to send you a piece of hardware, but they don't have money in the bank to send you a fucking free meal. You know what I mean? Like, this, again, conversation points around, like, who is this for? Who are we doing this for? The expectation of everyone saying you should do this thing. Why should I do it for you? I didn't get into gaming to please everyone else. If anything, me getting into gaming meant that I pissed everyone off. How dare I sacrifice my gorgeous, twink body to be fat? How
Oh
dare I
God,
do that?
yes. Oh my
You
God,
know?
no, you're absolutely right. Like, that's something I completely forgot about, was like the hate mail that comes with, like, putting yourself out there like that, like belly first into the world. Like,
Yes.
you're opening this door for all this hate mail, all these these roaches who, like, crawl their way onto your page and send you all these DMs like, oh, you're gonna die of diabetes, you
And like,
fat
baby,
fuck. Like,
you had to come and find me. You had to track me the fuck down if you
yeah,
wanted to see this belly in your face. You're here because you want to be here, and you're upset that you're seeing someone live their truth. And this is one thing, right? And I'll say this. I know, because we feature muscle gainers quite regularly on the podcast. We have heard from people who are like, well, muscle gainers aren't really gainers. Because they're
oh,
two different things. One's doing muscle and one's doing fat. This is one of those moments where you'll need to, if that's you, take several seats and shut up. Because clearly, muscle dudes and fat dudes are still going to get the same response from people who are like, hey, I feel a negative way towards what you're doing. Now, let's not be crazy about this. Obviously, muscle exists in a greater privilege, far greater privilege than fat does. We ain't finna play no games on this. Obviously, muscle is always going to give you greater access. It's not a debate. However, what we are acknowledging here is the gaining journey. And how, as you say, you went through this process. I imagine some of that hate mail doesn't just come from skinny Twinkie dudes. It probably comes from muscle dudes who are like, what the fuck are you doing showing your belly like that? Like, I get you meant to be dirty bulking, but like, come on, you're supposed to cut soon. What are you doing, man? Like, looks like you're losing control. I thought you were one of us. Doing the body the way that we think you should do the body. And it's just, oh, it's
oh
mad.
wow, you really let yourself go. Like, first of all, who asked you? You know what I mean? Like, especially when you're somebody like me who was, very lean for a long time and then becomes very large. Like, and I don't want to compare this to being disabled, but most people in life become disabled. Most people aren't born disabled. Most people become disabled.
Yeah,
And that's the same thing with being overweight. For whatever reason, shit happens in life. Most people become overweight, right? And it happens
yeah.
for a variety of reasons. So to say things like you've let yourself go, or it's like you have no idea what has happened in this person's life, that this is the trajectory they're on now. So to come to me with these judgments that nobody asked for, nobody invited you in for, who the hell do you think you are, dude?
It's the example I've given before, right? And I mentioned morality around weight before. I think a very good example to give here is like, oh, well, I think I'm allowed to say mean things to fat people because they got fat, because they're weak, and because they're lazy, and therefore I should say what I want to say because, they're unhealthy, they've got diabetes, they've got all these health problems, and it's like, okay, right.
Judgments. Yeah.
And it's like, let me ask you this. Is your grandmother still alive? Maybe, sure. You got a relative, an older relative probably that's still alive. They've probably got health problems. Yeah, because they're old. Cool. Your relative's a bad person because they have health problems. Stupid bitch grandma not killing herself because she's starting to get dementia. Should have thought of that before she got too old. And you already, in your mind, you go, oh, that sounds so crazy. That's so wild. Why would you say something like that? And it's like, yeah, why would you say something that casts aspersions on someone for having a health situation, for being whatever it is that they are? Oh, well, they can't help being old. They just became old because they were alive. Correct. People who are big became big because they were alive.
Mhm.
Again, the difference there is we know that it's morally wrong to hate on an old person because that would be fucking crazy. And if you don't think it's crazy to do the same thing with a fat person, what does that
Yeah,
tell you? It means you think that it's justifiable to fucking hate fat people. The fat
yeah,
phobia, it's coming from inside the house, you know?
you're right. It's absolutely. I mean, people feel that they come from this, physical, moral high ground where they think it's okay to pass these judgments. But it's like I think what really pisses you off is that you see somebody who is the picture idea of someone who should be miserable having a great time in life, and that's what's pissing you off.
How dare you be happy? I am miserable. You know, trans people say this all the time. In fact, Alokmanon is a great example of this. They give this example because they are a non-binary person out there in the world living their
Oh,
truth.
is that the comedian that's always wearing like the super fashionista comedian?
Co-
No,
I know they do comedy. I'm not sure about their outfits in particular, but they're a very
I think it's the same
well-regarded
person.
person
Yeah,
in
I think
the trans non-binary space. A lot of what they have to say,
is it
magical stuff.
Anok? Anok is
Alok, Alok.
A-L. Okay, let me just double check 'cause I think I've seen Alok Vaid Menon. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's who you're talking about. Yeah, yeah. They give this great example, which is so often when people try to shame trans and non-binary people, oh, you're sad because you clipped your wings. You said to yourself, this world will not love me as I am. I must change to fit this world. And you harmed yourself to do it. And it is heartbreaking that you had to harm yourself to fit in. But that's what you did. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I spread my wings. I lift my feet off this ground. I soar to the heavens. I live in the skies where I belong. And your anger is your sadness because what you see in me is I wanted to be you and you feel like you couldn't have been me. And so now, in order to justify your pain, you must make me hurt as well. But I refuse that pain. I will live my truth. And you can join me on this side of the conversation.
Yeah.
You can do, and you know what the best thing is about bodies and transformation is the transformation. It is never too late, baby. If you out there are listening, going, I can never gain the weight, or I feel so ashamed of weight gain, of being fat, baby, it is not too late. You can start today. You can start today. Pick up a burger today, goddammit. Have a good time. You know?
Yeah, the quickest way out is through. And to me, like the fastest way to truly being at peace and truly being happy was through my own body. It wasn't resisting it, it wasn't fighting it, it wasn't trying to change it, with these insane measures, supplements, starving, binging, whatever it was. Like the quickest way to my own peace and happiness was through the one body I've only ever had. And that looks different for everyone.
Absolutely.
We're not all meant to be the same.
Now, I want to take it back a sec because I know we've been getting some good chats today, but I want to make sure that we cover all the points that we wanted to get to. So I'm going to ask you a little bit about your gym experience, right? Because you've had a gym journey, been smaller, getting real large, coming down to a smaller size now, and now we're still having a journey through that. But you have always been belly first, out and proud. And I'm curious, as someone who gyms and has been through all these different kind of body types, what is that experience like? Being proud of the belly, being someone who who's clearly not trying to cut, but still occupying a gym, muscle, fitness space. What is that like?
Oh, it's like that saying that taking up space. That's what it feels like physically and metaphorically, right? Especially the gym that I go to, I go to bodybuilder gym here in Georgetown, Texas. And I'm the only guy that can do what I do at my gym. 5'5", 240 pounds, flexible, I'm the only one that can do that is all of that in one package. So that to me is already like a huge, oh, wow, like that. I really do have something to be proud of, you know? But as far as like the way that I look, I don't know if I really pay too much attention to what others are thinking or what I think they're thinking anymore at the gym, if that makes sense. Because I feel like I'm so focused now on like everything we've talked about
Mm.
that I'm not really paying attention to what other insecure people may or may not be thinking about me when they see me.
I think that's a healthy way to approach it, though, right? Like, I think the same can be said of gaining. A lot of people will feel a sense of self-consciousness, even if they're just focusing on pure fat. It's the fear of what are my friends and family members going to say when they see me changing? And I think there is a certain amount, we kind of touched on this at the very beginning. It's the bean soup of it all. There's a certain amount to which, yeah, we can account for that. We can walk in with some kindness and some grace, and, we're open to conversations. But to a certain extent, baby, like you just got to tell those people to get fucked because like you actually feel good in your body. We can think of narratives that we can spin to try and justify our weight gain. But the reality is, like, if you just tell a bitch, I'm actually totally fine in my bigger body and I actually feel happier for it, you will be amazed at how quickly they shut the fuck up because they have nowhere to go. There's no shame for them to cling on to. There's no negativity there. It's all positives and thumbs up. The social
Yeah.
etiquette then demands that they must too be approving. They have to be like, oh, yeah, it's great. I'm so happy for you. Thanks.
Yeah, no, the sexiest thing a person can be is happy, to me. In my opinion, the sexiest, most alluring thing a person can be, in my eyes, is happy and confident in themselves. Like, and that comes in many forms.
Well, look, and let me put this to you since we're talking a little bit now about the sexy of it all. Again, gym journey, body size and shape and shifting and all that. And you touched on this before as a shorter guy, the way in which social circumstances there is a sense of disregard being a shorter king. But like as your body has shifted and gone up and down the scales, have you noticed if people treat you differently depending on the body shape?
Yes, at the gym. When I was around 285, 290, 295, I felt it. I felt like I was just like that chunky muscle fat guy. Whereas now people take me more seriously at the gym. Like if I'm using a machine, people won't approach me as much. If I'm lifting weights and I'm using a machine, fewer people approach me to use that same machine. And I know that sounds silly, but when you're chubbier at a gym, like a bodybuilder gym, everybody there is in shape. Everybody there competes. Everybody there, is beautiful, physically beautiful. So, and they know that. So when you don't look like them, they don't take you seriously. So if you're doing lat pull downs and they want to use the machine, they have no qualms about coming up to you and saying, how many sets you got left? Can I, or how much longer do you got? Whereas when you look closer to them, they're much more hesitant about bothering you while you're working out. And that's one thing I've noticed now. Having had gone from go-go boy physique to fat guy to now being in shape again, I wasn't aware of that before. Now I'm aware of it because I spent 4 years at Gold's when I was larger, heavier, a little flabbier. And I could just feel like I was just one of the many in the gym. Whereas at this particular gym that I go to now, I'm certainly much more aware of that dynamic where people are much more hesitant to bother me or disturb me when I'm training. And honestly, I feel like I might even be guilty of it too. But again, it's that awareness that has now developed that wasn't there before. But I'm still super respectful because of where I was before. So it's also given me an upper hand because I can see someone. You never know where, everybody starts somewhere. So like it's not like I was always in this body. My body's changed many times over the years. So when I see somebody who's overweight, who clearly just started their fitness journey, I still treat them with the same amount of respect that I would have wanted when I was there. That wasn't afforded to me before by these people who have only ever known physical peak beauty.
It's a lesson in knowing what people really need. And much like I always say with gaining, the first step should not be putting food in your mouth. The first step should be taking stock of your life and your budget and your genetics and setting realistic goals and expectations for yourself so that when you get into the gaining, you're not spinning your wheels. I would imagine similarly with muscle, it doesn't matter what the exercise is, even if you follow the plan that someone sets out for you, if you're not in the right frame of mind, if you're not given the same ways of access, the same support, you're going to find that wear down is so much quicker than if someone just like gave you the time to help you to feel more at peace with what you're doing, right? Like it all makes sense. And I want to bring this round back, right? Because obviously today's episode focusing on you, we're looking at the experience of being a shorter guy and like this journey that you've been on with your weight. And I'd love to ask, right? Like as a short, stocky dude, do you have any advice for people who are on the smaller side, who want to do something similar to what you're doing? What advice do you have for them?
You have everything you need already inside you. Your package is already wrapped beautifully within you. And it's just opening it up for yourself and working with the components that you've already been given, that are already designed into your physical, psycho-emotional makeup, right? Don't compare yourself to somebody else's. It sounds cliche as fuck, but it's true. Like, don't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 12, because you're never going to win, right? Like, you have everything you need within you already 100%. And it's truly listening to yourself, listening to your emotions, listening to your body. When your body needs a rest, when your body needs to eat, when your body needs to drink water, when your body needs to sleep, when your body needs to eat again. And it's working with the organism that you reside in. That really is the secret. You know, it's not overconsumption. It's not stressing yourself out. It's not poisoning yourself. It's literally working with the organism that you are.
People need to hear this. So thank you for being such a fabulous guest.
You guys really do incredible work with this forum and this platform. You guys do such great work.
Thank you, mate. Now, where can our listeners find you online?
Oh, okay. So I'm really just on Instagram. I mean, that's probably my favorite way to talk to everybody is Roman the Wizard, roman.the.wizard on Instagram. That's me.
Fabulous. Well, y'all, that's a wrap for now here on Thicc Radio. Please remember to like and subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave us a good review. Now, listen, if you liked this episode, the podcast, our guest, or just us in general, please share it with your friends and encourage them to tune in. You can find me on Instagram and BlueSky at stannnum.
And you can find me on Instagram at thiccymouse and Grommr at Orpheus. You can also find us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Thicc Radio, or visit our website at podpage.com/Thicc Radio. If you would like to become a financial supporter of the show, you can donate through our PayPal account, and you can always email us at thiccradio@gmail.com. So until next time, bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Let's talk about it.
Thicc Radio is a Spotify podcast.
Artwork, media design, editing, and production by James Heinzen.
With original theme music by CYMK.